What's up, guys? Today we are going to do a walkthrough of one of my favorite tarot decks of all time, Triple Goddess Tarot by Jaymi Elford and illustrated by Franco Rivoli. One of my favorite decks. We're going to do a slideshow so you can preview every card in this deck. After that, I'm going to talk about more specifically the specs of this deck, the content, what comes with it, why I love it, and of course there will be a sample tarot reading at the end of it. So if you want to hop right to any of those specific parts of the video, timestamps are down below for you. Let's hop in.
What's in the box?
Alright, so what comes in the box when you purchase Triple Goddess Tarot? You get your deck of cards, of course. You also get a little white booklet with some very brief descriptions of what these cards mean. So while you can always choose to read these cards intuitively and draw your own conclusions for meanings, let's just say I were to pull the Three of Wands, I can also look it up in the little white book and see that it says this. Three of Wands, explore all aspects of your will, brainstorm and collect information, exploration, daydreaming, and an emerging idea. So the booklet is in black and white with no illustrations. It does come with a suggested tarot spread called the Triple Goddess Spread. And in addition to that, you can look up the card meanings in French, Italian, Spanish, German, and English. Triple Goddess refers to three archetypal divine feminine energies, symbolizing a woman's life cycle from maiden to mother to crone. This motif is found across many cultures, also symbolizing the phases of the moon and the realms of heaven, earth, and the underworld. These archetypal symbols are used throughout this deck and illustrated beautifully by artist Franco Rivoli, who is well known for his pagan-inspired artwork. Creator of Triple Goddess Tarot, Jaymi Elford is a Leo, an author, a tarot coach, and a fire spinner. Her vast body of work includes titles such as Tarot Inspired Life, the Heaven and Earth Tarot Kit, Vox Arcana Tarot, and the Tarot Z Deck. The Triple Goddess Tarot was her first deck ever released in 2017 and published by Lo Scarabeo. Most tarot decks come with 78 cards, but this deck actually has 79. The 79 cards with 23 major arcana, cards 0 through 21, plus there is an extra Fool card. Sometimes the major arcana are what we call trump cards, though I feel like we should definitely start to phase out that term. I would rather call them Bidens. There are 16 court cards in this deck, the kings, the queens, the knights, the pages. So one cool aspect of this deck that is in fact very unique to Triple Goddess Tarot is that all the kings are actually depicted as females. I mention that because if you are new to tarot and you are learning who the cards are and what they mean, if you are relying solely on the depiction of gender to inform you if it is a king or a queen, that's going to be tricky in this deck because they are all female. But just to kind of inform you on how you can tell the difference is at the very bottom of the card, there will be the symbol of, you know, the crown, kings and queens. The queen's crowns are more kind of rounded and, dare I say, feminine looking, right? So that's going to be how you're going to be able to distinguish king versus queen. Because this, again, is Triple Goddess Tarot depicting predominantly Maiden, Mother, Crone, there is minimal depiction of masculine energies here, but it's not to say it doesn't exist. So if we were to look at the knights, for example, some of the knights are masculine, like the Knight of Swords, and of course that really masculine depiction of the Emperor. But then you have something like the Knight of Pentacles, which is sort of more feminine, though I think you could argue that it's not exactly clear, right? It leaves some open to your interpretation and imagination as well. When you're looking at this deck, what's really cool also is the progression of the elements. So again, Maiden, Mother, Crone, we can think of like child, mother, elderly woman, right? So the earlier stages, like the 2s, 3s, 4s, they're shown more as a depiction with children or younger women. The middle stages could be sort of like middle stages of life when you start entering into like motherhood phase. Not to say that that's going to be everybody's story, but then as you get towards the the ends of the elements, so the 8s, 9s, 10s, those cards are predominantly shown with the Crone. And to be honest, they're actually some of my favorite cards in the deck, particularly this 8 of Swords. I just think it's one of the coolest depictions of the 8 of Swords that I've ever seen. But I love this because it spans all generations, and I think that's something that a lot of tarot decks lack. So another important thing to note if you are learning this deck is that some of the names and titles differ ever so slightly. So in this deck, Maiden, Mother, Crone is the Magician, the Strength card, and the Devil card. The Hierophant is actually referred to as the Teacher, and the World is referred to as the Reunion. If we look over at the page cards in the book, they are actually titled Students. And then, as I've described to you, the kings are all depicted as more female, feminine energies. So they're referred to in the booklet as the Elders. So in terms of the court cards, you will have Students, Knights, Queens, and Elders. If you are struggling to find the name of the card in the book, best refer to the Roman numerals that are listed at the bottom of the card so you can find the correlating message that goes with your tarot card. All right, let's talk about size. Size matters, am I right? Comparing Triple Goddess Tarot to the traditional Rider-Waite deck, that is sort of a good standard of measure because most of us are familiar with it. The traditional Rider-Waite deck measures 2 inches, 3/4, width-wise, and then length, it's usually 4 inches and 3/4. This deck is slightly smaller. It's similar in size, and to be honest, I haven't measured it exactly, but you can kind of eyeball it and see. So just know that in advance if you're a tarot reader who likes to shuffle and mix in different decks. Probably not a standard deck that you're going to be able to do that with a lot. But in terms of its ability to shuffle easily and hold it in your hand, I think it passes with flying colors. I like the size of it. And while I am by no means an expert on paper stock, I can say that in terms of thickness and the quality of the paper used for this deck, it's almost identical to what I see with Rider-Waite. Very easy to shuffle. It's not super sticky. And again, it's super easy to work with.
Every day I'm shuffling.
So having done a very quick search for some pricing on this, average retail price for Triple Goddess right now, and I'm recording this in January of 21, it runs about $21, give or take. I'm sure you could get it used or on eBay for cheaper, though I would certainly encourage you to shop locally, support your local esoteric shop. For me personally, for a deck this size that doesn't come with a full colorful booklet, I wouldn't want to pay much more than $21, $22 for this. Again, that's just me personally. However, I specifically did this deck review because I believe so much in this deck and really do endorse it. I'm not getting paid to do that. I just really love this deck and I'm drawn to it. So if I were to ever like lose this deck or something were to happen, I would absolutely replace it because it's something that just, it's like a standard for me. It's a go-to. So if you've ever gotten a tarot reading from me, it's very likely I've used these cards in your reading because I do like to use multiple cards, but this for me is like an absolute standard. It's like, so in looking at Triple Goddess Tarot compared to the original Rider-Waite deck and these beautiful illustrations that we all have come to know and love by Pamela Coleman Smith, this does definitely pay homage and make reference to some of those original cards, but other cards kind of stray in a different direction. So I think it's kind of a beautiful mixed bag of both, full of some fun surprises on where the artist chose to take some creative liberties. And while Rider-Waite is near and dear to my heart, like a lot of tarot readers, it's the deck I first learned on, I realized in looking at Triple Goddess Tarot, if I were to pick out some of my favorite cards, they are actually cards that tend to differ greatly from the original work of Pamela Coleman Smith. So looking at things like the Five of Cups, the Page of Cups, the Strength card, the Temperance card, the Moon card, and this Eight of Swords that I love so much, because there's such a psychological aspect to them, and that phrase like a picture's worth 1,000 words. Those cards I gravitate towards because I feel like I could talk about that one card all day. It gives me tons of intuitive hits and messages. There's a lot of different stories and energies that are in that card already. So when you're pulling tarot for a client or a querent, you have a lot of substance to work with, and that's really what matters to me most as a tarot reader. And I do have to give so much props to the artist, Franco Rivoli, because his artwork is truly amazing. That's something that you kind of gravitate towards decks that speak to you and you like the images, you relate to the images. His use of light and shadow is absolutely incredible. Something like the Eight of Pentacles, the Nine of Swords, the Page of Wands, the Four of Cups. You look at these cards and they look like murals and paintings that you would see in like a fancy art museum. I'm constantly blown away with like the level of detail that the artist put into these cards, which is another reason why I love this deck. I also love that this deck has a lot of contrast, where you have some really deep, probing, dark psychological imagery in the Death card, in the Seven of Swords. What a cool Seven of Swords this is. It's also mixed with all these beautiful cards that have almost like a fairy tale aspect to them. We look at the Lovers, the Three of Cups, the Ace of Swords, the Sun card, even the Star card. It feels like images from a fairy tale, which is so beautiful. So because this is one of my first deck reviews, I anticipated doing like a warms and cools or a pros and cons, and I have to say I don't really have a list of cons, so I don't just want to create them out of nowhere. I would advise that if this is your first tarot deck you're looking at buying, it may be a little bit trickier or a bigger learning curve because it doesn't say on the cards Magician, High Priestess, Strength, the Tower, right? You have to look up the Roman numeral and make that connection or that association. Of course you can learn that, but it may take a little bit more time. I know a lot of people learn with the Rider-Waite deck, but you certainly don't have to, right? It's a general rule of thumb because most tarot decks are based on the original Rider-Waite deck, this one included, but I also think this is a great deck to learn and get familiar with tarot. It differs ever so slightly where it kind of gives you a fresh and new perspective on cards that you don't get in the original. Like Four of Swords, the same meaning is there, mental rest, clarity, finding peace of mind, but it's shown a little bit differently, right? So there's examples of that where I just think this is a very cool, unique deck for that reason. One thing, this is just a funny side note that I struggled with when I first started learning this deck, is when I would look at the High Priestess really quickly, because it doesn't say in writing High Priestess, I actually thought it was the Empress because she's kneeling and the way her skirt is like over her knees, it almost looks like a pregnant belly. So for the longest time when I started reading with this deck, I assumed it was the Empress until I actually looked closer. I was like, oh, that's the High Priestess who's like kneeling in prayer. Again, small little learning curves, but I actually look at it now and it kind of makes me laugh. And the Moon card and the Strength card, which again in this deck is actually called the Mother, these cards are so amazing. Like they tap into this like crazy psychology and like it provokes emotions just me looking at them. These are some intense energies when they come out in a client reading, and like that to me is just so cool that this deck is so profound in that way that it can pull that emotion out of you. Highly encourage you to work with this deck and utilize it because it's a lot of fun with some really great tarot messages. All right, guys, let's do a collective general reading using the suggested goddess spread. It's a 3-card spread, so let's go ahead and shuffle up. This is a general tarot message for the collective out there watching. Take only what resonates, release the rest. You are accountable for all actions and decisions. Here we go. All right. The 8 of Cups. The 4 of Cups. And that came right out. Ooh, there's 2. The 5 of Swords and the Ace of Pentacles. Can you guys see those? Let's go ahead and look at these a little bit closer. So in looking at these three cards and reading the messages completely intuitively, it looks like a lot of you are right in the thick of wanting to move away from something, or you already have, but you're very much in your head about it. You're second guessing it and wondering if you've made the right decision or the wrong decision. Basically, you've made a move and plateaued, or the opposite, you're too afraid to make the move because you're already anticipating a negative outcome. So let's dig deeper into these energies, and hopefully I can help you solve your dilemma. So with the Eight of Cups in the first card position representing the Maiden, where do you seek growth and expansion? This card has to do with moving towards things that are emotionally fulfilling. Eight of Cups is usually a walk away type vibe in a tarot reading. The Eight of Cups person is always facing and walking towards the moon, meaning that he or she is following their intuition and believing that there is something else out there for them. It's not to say that all the energy and effort that you have been putting into something has not served you. It has indeed been for a good and beneficial reason. But what now? Now you've reached a point where you either need to seek more and go deeper and add to what you have already built, or to walk away entirely and find something else better and more fulfilling to replace it. Have you been neglecting your personal happiness and joy to fulfill the needs of others, to fulfill your work responsibilities? If so, now it's time to make up for where there has been neglect in your life. Because Eight of Cups indicates that emotionally there is a feeling of lack, what once made you happy and fulfilled no longer serves that purpose, and that is completely okay and natural. But it's up to you to follow your hunch and see what else is out there. What's so important to remember, though, is that the Eight of Cups is such a card of bravery and courage, allowing yourself to emotionally detach from what is familiar and to go off into the unknown. This can be scary, right? But it doesn't have to be. Allow yourself to operate with curiosity, not fear or pessimism. Any 8 in tarot is about movement, liberation, and expansion. Act on the belief that you do deserve more and that there are plenty of fish in the sea. You do have to cast your line out, though, to find them. No risk, no reward. Moving into the Four of Cups, which is in card position number 2, representing the mother, what lends us stability and helps to nurture us. I see a period of maintaining and grounding yourself emotionally. You have or will soon take the courageous and bold move to venture off into the unknown, as seen in the Eight of Cups. But if you are expecting overnight success and results, well, you're going to be disappointed. But don't fear that. Your emotional intelligence is what will help pull you through. Take it easy, give yourself a break, maybe rest up, and give yourself positive affirmations as you prepare for big changes or grow comfortable with the changes you've already made. Remember how strong you are. Tenacity will serve you well right now. You're very likely experiencing a new set of emotions and feelings, especially with the major changes in your environment. So essentially, get comfortable with being uncomfortable and not having all the answers figured out yet. Allow yourself to daydream and come up with creative solutions to the problems you may be experiencing. There may also be a temptation to romanticize the past because it felt safe and familiar. Instead of looking backwards as this girl gazes longingly out the window to her past, instead challenge yourself to change the narrative. Focus on newness and what you want to build in the future. The Ace of Cups representing newness sits beside you, but you may not be fully acknowledging its full potential yet. Similar to the Eight of Cups, perhaps this girl is gazing out the window because she knows she must leave her comfort zone, again. But does she have the confidence and bravery to do so? While she sits in the darkness, there is light on the other side of the window, so there are better things to come, but she needs to emotionally prepare herself to make this important transition. Perhaps some of the answers she seeks involves returning to something from the past that she has been avoiding or neglecting. There is a duality to this message. Take a moment to rest and have gratitude for where you are at, but know that eventually you grow out of the comfort zone and need to take steps in a new, possibly unfamiliar direction to obtain satisfaction and joy and fulfillment again. Four of Cups says we have plateaued, but this is not where the story ends. So lastly, in the third card position, representing the Crone, what we can release or let go of, we have the Five of Swords and the Ace of Pentacles. So this indicates walking away or detaching from a situation that was either negative or pessimistic. There may be a feeling that somebody manipulated you or used you or act in a lower vibration and you were left to suffer. Ultimately, you may be replaying memories and thoughts in your head about things you shoulda, coulda, woulda said, but the Ace of Pentacles is reminding you that building new or building elsewhere is the best course of action right now. Holding a grudge or resentment is harboring negative thoughts and emotions and energy, and the only person who really suffers from that is you. You may actually be blocking your blessings. I would even offer that the Ace of Pentacles may be offering you a positive solution in that whoever you were working with at the time essentially showed you their true colors, in which case now you can walk away knowing who they really are, and how this relationship was not meant for you in the long run. It's not about getting revenge, it's not about redemption, it's about taking the tools you have and making the most of them. Perhaps you're being encouraged to move away from a team dynamic and to stand strong on your own 2 feet for a while. If it's your physical body or mental health that is being illustrated by the Ace of Pentacles, it looks as if you are feeling stifled and suffocated. You need to view the situation from a practical and positive perspective, but also through the lens of opportunity. The Ace of Pentacles is a gift from the universe, a building block towards your future. There will always be moments where you reflect on the past and wish you had acted or said or done things differently, but ultimately with these 2 cards coming out together, it indicates that's a waste of your mental energy to focus on what has already transpired. There may be a situation that was humbling or caused you some frustration, some chaos, even some hurt and heartbreak. But knowing what you know now, how can you proceed forward and build from this circumstance in a positive and productive way? It is through opposition and challenges that we find insight and wisdom. What is so beautifully illustrated to me is that the Ace of Pentacles is there, you can see it, you can feel it, but now it's going to take some extra energy and strength for you to unearth it from its roots and that twine that is holding it in the earth. You have to muster up a little strength and energy to go after what it is that you want now. Fortunately for you, you hold swords in your hand, as indicated in the 5 of Swords, so you can cut and extrapolate the seed from the vine. Swords represent our knowledge, our lessons, our ideas, our words, our thoughts. Essentially, the positive you can take away from a negative situation is the lessons and how you're going to implement them differently this time. Perhaps you need to be more vocal. Perhaps you need to share more of your ideas and thoughts. Perhaps you need to be less trusting of those who are very calculating and trying to block your heart's desire. Always a good idea to operate with truth, integrity, and kindness. Walk away from those who lower your vibe and do not support you or honor your value and worth. Invest in yourself, and when new opportunities present themselves, you best jump on them. Those with a cruel heart will face their karma at some point, but that's really none of your business. Make good on this new start in your life. It feels like you're in for a lot of wonderful surprises after detaching from a lackluster situation. In the throes of major change and transition, give yourself a break. Be extra kind to yourself, and if you hit a wall or obstacle, work through it with emotional intelligence. Get back up and try again. You must do things you've never done if you want to experience things you've never felt. All right, tarot fans, that's what I got for you. That is the final review on Triple Goddess Tarot. If there's a certain deck you would like to see me review in the future, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you soon on my channel for more tarot. Bye!